Hey guys, it's Dani. Welcome to a new episode from our Orchid Care for Beginners series, which this year is a little bit more towards intermediate growers. Today we have a little bit of a different type of video. As you can see, we have some plants here which don't really look like orchids. Spoilers, this one is an orchid. These are not. And I brought them here because I want to talk to you about the things that orchids have already taught you and maybe you had absolutely no idea, but I'm gonna hopefully inspire you to discover what you already know based on your experience with growing orchids so that you already have an advantage if you so desire to grow some very different orchids such as habanerias or maybe jewel orchids, or why not anthuriums, alocasias, all of these like rare plants which they're much more affordable now, yay! So I can see how these guys can grow together. They're both very beautiful. So I hope that this will be an inspiring video. And before we start, today's episode together with this entire series is of course sponsored by rePotme.com, who offers you everything you could possibly need to properly take care of your orchid, no matter what type of orchid that might be, and also other houseplants as well, such as these anthuriums and alocasia that I'm showing you today. So on their website you will find things like potting mixes, pots, accessories, grow lights, and everything in between. So I will link you to their website down below in the description. Feel free to check it out at any time. I will also share with you the products that I really like. Some of them I will show you today in this video because I am actually using them with these plants, and you can definitely use them with other orchids as well. So just check the description for all of those links. And with that said, let us start. I do not have a list. This is just freestyling, but I know what I want to tell you. So as you can see, I have here an array of plants, and this is because it's absolutely normal to want to discover either other types of orchids which don't even look like orchids or other types of plants. And the first thing we typically do is we go on YouTube or whatever social platform, we search that plant and we see what other people do. We want to see first and foremost what type of potting medium we need to use, what type of pot, and then we're going to see, what conditions they like. Now, here's the thing. Sadly, because we have so much access to everybody, we start to notice that everybody does something different and says you should do something different as well, or at least suggests that, this is the best option for maybe particular areas and so on and so forth. And while seeing other people's experience is very important, we'll get to that. The thing is though, as an orchid grower, you don't really need to necessarily listen to other people. I know, shocking. Don't get it the wrong way, but I would much rather your first instinct to be what you think will be okay for the plant, because you already know, but maybe you don't know. I'll show you an example, right? Just so you see what I mean. So like a few months ago, I saw anthuriums and these alocasias, beautiful, for sale. I wanted to grow them, and without realizing, the first thing that I did, which by the way, I didn't really properly ever seriously try to grow these plants, but especially this one because I love it so much, I kind of want to do justice to it now. The first thing my instinct told me to do was not to Google YouTube videos, which is what I usually do because I like to see what other people do and so on. But my first instinct after 12 years of growing orchids was to search for example, for the anthurium, I searched for, and the first thing I think you should search for as well is anthurium natural habitat. Let's see, and nowadays we have that AI overview. Let's see what the AI overview says. Anthuriums are native to the tropical rainforests of the Americas. We kind of know some orchids like that as well, don't we? Specifically from the northern part of Mexico and Argentina, blah, blah, blah. They typically grow as epiphytes. Don't we know a thing or two about epiphytes? Because as orchid growers, 99% of us start with epiphytes, with phalaenopsis. Yeah, this is not rocket science to our ears. Already this is familiar information. So typically they grow as epiphytes on other plants like trees in humid, warm environments, such as Phalaenopsis. Some species also grow in moist lowland forests or near streams. So from this little tidbit of information, you just got everything you needed to know about what type of medium to grow these plants in. No joke. And at this point, I'm referring to that existential question that we always ask ourselves. So what type of medium should I put this plant in? Whether it's an orchid or anthurium or what. I'm just taking anthuriums because these are what is new to me. I kind of went through a lot of orchids, but I'll give you the example of orchids as well. So already that little tidbit there told me, and it should tell you as well, without ever even seeing the tens of types of media and combinations other people do, it should tell you exactly what you need to know. Use an epiphytic mix that works for you. You already grow orchids, you know what works for you, use it with anthuriums. That's what I did. This is my typical jam. This is my sphagnum moss and bark mix and my slow release fertilizer and an orchid pot from rePotme. And there he is. Isn't that amazing? This is just because I grow orchids. At this point, when you already have an idea about this, at least, you can go on and see what other people are using, just maybe to confirm some suspicions you already have, or just, because it's fun to see other people's experience, which I do believe is more important in other aspects than what they grow their plants in. You will see people doing experiments. I saw people having like those glass vases with leca, moss and algae, hopefully not cyano, but algae and stuff. And I was like, well, that looks very familiar to my beginner orchid days. Do I want to go through that again? No, you don't have to. You already grow orchids, you know how to grow these plants. It's okay. But let's go one step further, because this type of information of where these plants grow doesn't only give you, ideas of what you should be potting them in. Worm temperatures, it goes on this AI overview to say. Again, 21 to 32 degrees Celsius. These are the exact same temperatures that favor our orchids as well, or the vast majority of the orchids we grow in our homes, especially as beginners. Aha, here's a good one. High humidity. They thrive in humid environments with levels between 60 and 80%. How many of you have invested money in humidifiers for orchids, especially Phalaenopsis orchids, only to realize you don't really need them that much because you can just, keep the orchids watered? It's the same with these guys. However, you have to, again, notice and compare to your orchids that these guys don't have a thick cuticle. They have typically the velvety leaves, some of them at least. So what this should tell you is that this guy is not as drought tolerant as orchids, and it really isn't. Do we see pseudobulbs and canes and stuff on this guy? No. Again, not as drought tolerant as orchids are. You'll think that without even knowing. You're gonna take one look at this plant, you're gonna be like, ooh, this guy does not want to have its roots everywhere like the Phalaenopsis, nor does it like to be very dry like the Phalaenopsis. See how ideas are starting to take form? What else do we see here? Filtered sunlight. Anthuriums need bright indirect light. The bane of our existence. Bright indirect light. What the heck does that even mean? Wasn't that the question we all had with Phalaenopsis? Phalaenopsis or other orchids, they don't like direct sun, they like bright shade or indirect light. What does it mean? What am I supposed to do? In the sun, not in the sun, filtered sun, in the shade, what does it do? Well, you already know. You've grown orchids, you already know what bright shade is. This is what this plant needs. You don't need to overthink it, you don't need to search on YouTube to see what other people put these guys under. Bright shade, you already know what bright shade is, bestie. You are an expert on bright shade at this point. You are also possibly an expert on artificial grow lights. You might be, I think I am already, because I've been using grow lights with my orchids so much. I definitely use grow lights with these guys. Both of these have started under the rePotme lights, which I really, really like. This one overgrew the light, so I had to move it into a bright shade situation. This one is still under grow lights. And when I purchased this alocasia, it only had this leaf, and it started to completely take over the pot in a matter of a month. And it looks very nice. And even though the alocasia is slightly different than the anthurium, I went with the same logic. So already bright shade is not something new. for us. Oh no, it's the bane of our existence, but it's not new. We know. Well-draining soil. Well-draining soil, what could that be? Again, you grow orchids, you already know how a well-draining potting mix should look like and what to add to the potting mix to make it well-draining. And not to mention the type of pot, same deal. You need an airy pot, well-draining pot, airy, there we have it. And this is not the only type of pot you can grow these these plants in. And protection from cold drafts and indirect sunlight, direct sunlight, sorry. Again, we know the drill, we know how that goes, we know exactly what to do. Did I have to watch 10 videos to tell me that? No, because I already knew. I had to read where these plants grow and how their environment is. The aim of that is not to recreate the environment 100% because again, we already know that is impossible. All we want to do is create similar conditions or know how much we can stretch our alien conditions to make it work. And guess what? There we have it. These plants are potted in the same things I plant my orchids in. Given the alocasia, most of alocasias are not epiphytic, but here's another thing with alocasias, and you can apply this to habanerias, slipper orchids, jewel orchids as well, which again, if you're into the house plant, rare plant type of aesthetic, jewel orchids are absolutely phenomenal. Habanerias are very nice as well. Well, these orchids are terrestrial, or they will be described as terrestrials, such as some alocasias. But already some of you will know, especially with slippers, which I'm guessing many of you already have, you know that they're not really as terrestrial as pelargoniums. They're just not. I like to call them semi-terrestrial, just to make the distinction. It is not necessarily correct or accurate, but in my orchid experience, a semi-terrestrial usually grows on the forest floor, like these guys. And on the forest floor, there is a layer of, I really don't know how you call it in English. In Romanian, you call it humus. Maybe it's hummus as well, I don't know. Not the dish, not the stuff you eat. But there is a layer of more fresh leaves, branches that are all piling at the bottom of the forest, and they're starting to break down, but they're not completely broken down into soil, and they are very airy. They're very wet, very moist, and typically these plants that grow there don't have aerial roots like a Phalaenopsis would have. All of their roots are in this layer of very airy, soil-like things. It's not soil yet, it is breaking down. So already, because we know that from slipper orchids, which I'm guessing many of you grow already, once you read about an alocasia or a jewel orchid that it's growing on the forest floor, in under the canopies of trees, things of the sorts, you already know. Oh, under trees, what do we have under the tree? We have that layer of leaves and branches that, you know, you cannot say, oh, this orchid is an epiphyte because it doesn't grow on other plants, but I also cannot say, oh, this orchid grows like roses, because it really doesn't, because of its location. And even if you didn't know you know this, you know it. If you've grown slipper orchids, you know this already. You know that you should make a mixture that is not very epiphytic friendly, let's say, a mixture that just stays more moist, a mixture that is still airy, because once you put this plant into many, I would say, conventional potting mixes, media out there, it's not gonna thrive. You need to aerate those media. How are we gonna aerate it? How much perlite do we use? We don't know. Bark and sphagnum moss, that's it. You grow slipper orchids, you know how to grow alocasias, I promise. And again, you know, you have that indirect light because it's under the trees and so on. We already know, bestie, we know what that means. It's okay. And you know, that's pretty much all there is to it. So all of this information you can apply to any maybe more obscure orchid that you're interested in, or other houseplants that just grow very well with orchids. It really extends to multiple types of plants and multiple types of obscure orchids. And maybe you just didn't know that you could use your already embedded in you information to grow other houseplants. And I hope this video inspires you. Now, at this point, I'm not saying, okay, don't watch any videos. No, I want you to prioritize your critical thinking, develop critical thinking skills, develop the ability to have confidence in your conclusions, and develop the skill to research. And when I say research, not, oh, let's say what Danny has to say about this orchid. No, you're gonna see what I say, you know, when in your spare time, just for the funsies. First of all, I want you to Google it on your own. That's the first thing I want you to do. And then see my experience, because I can tell you about, it's a pest magnet, or listen, it has some rotting susceptibility here and there, or listen, I found this fertilizer, it's great, try it. You know, those types of stuff. Or, you know, patterns of growth. This is a more unique one. For example, habanerias, they go dormant in the winter time. They lose all of their leaves. Did you know? They're deciduous. So apart from, you know, the typical what to pot it in, what type of light it needs, temperature, there's also that pattern of growth that has little quirks. That's where other people's experience comes in, and it's invaluable. And you should, you know, see people's experience. But first, build your own idea. I don't want to swallow you. Darn fungus gnat. Build your own ideas first, then see what other people are doing, because you will be more selective in the information you choose to let in, and the information you're going to be like, girl, no, and, you know, so on. And the information that can apply to you, and the information that maybe does not, because we're all different. We all grow stuff differently. From other people, I personally like to hear personal experience in how that plant behaves, and less about what potting media they use, or what grow lights they use, and so on. It can be helpful, but at some point, again, when you have already experience, I believe it's better to start to at least practice to put your own self, you know, into growing these plants, because that's what constitutes the fun part, in my opinion, and what hopefully will keep you safe from like click farms, right? People who do like videos just for people to click, just to farm some clicks, you know, those roses and potatoes, click farms. That's what's gonna keep you safe. You won't even click on those videos, you won't give them views and money, revenue. And if you're confused about what the heck potting medium do I use, you know, you're gonna get rid of all of that nonsense, and you're gonna get the proper information that you need from other people, and the basic information you're gonna gather it yourself from Google. All right, so with that said, I hope you get what I'm trying to say. With that said, I hope this video was inspiring, and I'm so happy that orchid growing can do that for you, because it's so rewarding to figure out that, hey, I can do this by myself. I don't need anybody. I'm just watching other people for the funsies. Absolutely amazing. That's what I want for you. So I hope you do realize that you know more than you know if you start thinking about it. And with that said, I hope you have a great experience discovering other orchids, new houseplants, and I hope this was a inspiring video. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you rePotme for sponsoring yet another Orchid Care for Beginners or Intermediate Growers series. And with that said, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!